For mortality drag, in a simple term, this is the reflection of the loss of additional return that we could have earned if we decide to buy annuities immediately at retirement. The annuities are based on the principles of mortality cross-subsidy, which means that the insurer will benefit from those people who died younger than expected, and the profit get from those who died younger can be used to subsidize those who live longer than expected, and this actual profit can be used to enhance the annuity rate. But for this new option, the income drawdown, because it's a deferral of the annuity purchase, so we no longer benefit from this actual profit. This means that in order for the option to provide the same level of income as the annuities, we would need extra investment return each year to compensate for this absence of the benefit from the subsidy. For example, based on the data we have, we know for a single male of age 60 who puts out purchasing until age 75 would require extra of 2.3% to make up for this effect of the drag. And we also done some further analysis on this, and in the slides we provided, unfortunately doesn't have this graph. I will just show you a demonstration using a simple chart. Hopefully you can see. This graph basically showing between the age of 65 and 75, the mortality drag rate is increasing as the age getting older. So what does this mean? It means that this loss of actual return from cross-subsidy is increasing as the age getting older. The longer you wait to purchase the annuities, the greater the returns needed to be on your pension fund to make up for this loss. We also see from our data that the annuities which pays out 50% to the dependents, the risk of mortality drag is smaller, and which means this impact is more significant for single life. So now we can see the disadvantage of the income drawdown option is that there's a loss of the benefit from the cross-subsidy which we could have from buying the annuity immediately. And this brings us to our next concept, which is called critical yield. We talk about we need actual return needed to compensate the loss to cross-subsidy. This will be taken into account of this rate called critical yield, which is defined as the growth rate required from the fund in order that the option purchase the same level of annuity income. So this is not only taking into account the mortality drag we just talked about before, but also taking into account of other the loss to benefits of actual risk we need to think about. For example, interest rate. If the future interest rate is getting lower, then the deferred annuities probably will lead to a much lower income when you eventually decide to buy an annuity a few years later. And also in terms of the age, the older we are, generally the annuity rate is better because you receive less number of years. This will also affect the growth rate required for your fund now. And thirdly, there's a trend now of people living longer in the future. This will be incorporated in the deferred annuity as well, that in the future these people will live even longer and there was even smaller annual income. This was also affected the rates of the critical yield. And charges. For the income drawdown option, they actually incur higher charges than the normal annuities. So this will reduce the investment growth of the fund we have. And because it eats away the pension funds, we also need to require the actual return to compensate for this. The type of annuities also affects critical yields to some extent. For these annuities which have actual guarantee period or increased benefits, and this means that the initial income will be quite low, and this is to reflect the cost of annuities. But for the income drawdown options, we don't have these additional costs, so actually this will reduce some of this critical yield. So the key message is that this critical yield is served as a rate, which is give us a feel of how aggressive of investment return will have to be, and it also give us a flag or warning on whether it's likely for the members to achieve the level of annuities that they originally desired. If the current investment selection is already risky, this does bring a warning that in order to achieve the investment return set in critical yield, we probably have to change the investment selection to invest in more risky assets such as property and equity to increase the investment return. All these risks will need to be considered before we decide to choose this income drawdown option. This brings us to our conclusions. In summary, that we have talked about this income drawdown options and how it's becoming increasingly popular, because it does allow members to take their income from the pension fund before they retire and still enjoy the benefit that the rest of the fund will carry on accumulated to enable them to have amount of money ready to purchase a further annuity when they decide to retire before the maximum age 75. But we also talk about that in comparison to the traditional pension plan, that there's two key risks related to this. One is that it reduced overall pension pot of the money available for you to purchase annuities. Also, this is an unsecured pension. This deferred period introduces additional uncertainty and risk that we will not have if we buy the annuities immediately. We have seen this risk through the two terms, mortality drag and critical yield. We know that by choosing the income drawdown option, we definitely lost some actual return that we could have from the annuities, which is based on the cross subsidies from people who lives shorter than expected and the people who lives longer than expected. And so we also look at critical yields, which is used as a measure of the overall investment return needed for the member to obtain the same level of annuities they originally desired. And we know that will be affected by the fluctuation of the interest rate and the trend that we can all see that people generally live longer, and also higher charges applied to the income drawdown options, and also depends on the types of the annuities. In general, it's quite a lot of high investment risk we need to be aware of if we want to satisfy these critical yield for our fund to grow at this high rate of return. So overall, that we are aware that these particular options is very useful, but at the same time it probably less suitable for a smaller pension pot, also less suitable for a high risk portfolio already. And we also need to bear in mind of the features of our current schemes, and our current scheme have like 75% of people are married, which could also offset some of this risk, particularly brought by the mortality drag. Thanks very much for listening to me today. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me on the emails or give me a call.